Welcome back, Red Spotters! Another show here in the Red Spotlight podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by my very good friend, Mr. David Francisco. We're back with Red Spotlight number 307. On today's episode, David and I are going to catch you guys all up on all the Marvel-ings happening on the internet. All of your questions and still lingering theorizations of WandaVision have been answered seemingly by Jac Schaeffer and Max Shackman, the people behind WandaVision themselves. We've got plenty of interview quotes. We're going to have discussions about how we thought it all landed, how we are still feeling from it, as well as to prepare you guys for what to expect for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which of course David and I, we did 7 weeks. Can you believe that? 7 weeks doing the WandaVision recaps. We did 11 or 12 weeks doing the S.H.I.E.L.D. recaps. And so like I personally, you know, I'm not sure how re-listenable, if that's even a term, the episodes are, but like, it's so fun though, sitting down with you week to week and, you know, theorizing and seeing if we can just talk about the episodes week to week. And so we have 6 to go with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I'm very curious to see what the response is going to be to that one. So we'll have more discussion on that in a bit, but just to keep an eye out for that one on our feed. Remember, our podcasts drop every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays, but for Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would imagine they probably would drop between Tuesday and Wednesday, depending on how we are able to produce them, because we have several, as always, different shows going on at the same time. I want to remind our audience that, of course, we are still covering awards season. We are still attempting to review as many new films as possible. The Oscar nominations did come out this week, but we're not going to cover them this week. I'm going to wait for Peter to come back next week. We still have reviews planned for films like Minari and Promising Young Women, Promising Young Woman, as well as other films. And, of course, a couple of big pop culture projects are hitting the streams this week. Raya and the Last Dragon, I think a few weeks back, but the team finally got around to seeing it. David and I will discuss a little bit of how we thought the screening went as far as our, you know, private outdoor audience was concerned. But next week, we will commence with the official review of Raya and the Last Dragon with Peter Martinez. Of course, he was there. As well as the Snyder Cut, the Justice League Snyder Cut version, which is also dropping on HBO Max this weekend. So it's a pretty loaded time, which I think, you know, David, it's a welcome change. It's been a long time since we've had stacked weeks like this. I think it hasn't been, at least since 2019, where we've had a couple of, you know, big items coalesce together. So it's nice to be talking about a bunch of stuff. But, you know, we are small town podcast, very limited with scheduling, obviously. So we're going to get to those items as quickly as we can. So thank you so much for keeping your patience in mind when it comes to our coverage. So 1,000 thank yous all around. And let's go ahead and jump in with the agenda for this week. Of course, we're going to have a big Marvel conversation, but before that, let's get you guys caught up on where the movie industry is this week in regards to theaters reopening, as well as the potential future releases of upcoming films coming to a theater near you, maybe? Or coming to a streaming service near you. There's still a bunch of questions up in the air. Before we get to that, David, how are you doing this week?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I visited you guys over the weekend and everything. I met Sergio, and he gave me a bunch of PS4 games for me to play.
Really?
Yeah. So it was funny because he was just like, dude, I'm so excited. I finally got someone else to talk about these games. And I was kind of like, oh, I get it. I can't really talk about like the Nintendo games with my sister much because she doesn't really care. But yeah, I'm excited.
Now, a good shout out to Sergio Ramos, who is a frequent listener of our show and seemingly a proprietor of many different things that all of us seem to like. He deserves a very special shout out for procuring other items that we will not reveal on the air, but all of us are very well aware of, and we are quite thankful for that. We definitely feel better. And we hope all of you listening are feeling better as well. It is an interesting time. You know, we spent so much of 2020 just in this state of darkness and hopelessness with no direction, no light to guide us out. But maybe now, if it kind of feels like a turning point with a lot of people getting, like millions of people now getting vaccinated. I think almost 2 million people are getting vaccinated a day now. And the fact that all of us were able to have an event, all of us, I mean all of the Red Spotlight panel, we hadn't really had many gatherings of any kind. You know, people have asked me in my personal life, like, why aren't you hanging out with your friends more often? Well, look, we would hang out every week at this place called the Cinemark every single Thursday. That would be our thing. And then afterward, we'd have a bite to eat at one of the, restaurants nearby. And, while the pandemic didn't necessarily eliminate everything we could do, there were other, I guess, windows of opportunity, you could say. But, every person on this panel, in this group, has behaved with the utmost, cautiousness because of the pandemic. And it was never really a conversation. I think everyone just understood the seriousness of what this meant. All of our lives were changed. All of our lives were affected by this once-in-a-century pandemic. And it hasn't been easy. And this podcast and our virtual conversations have kept us going, but it definitely was the longest stretch of time where we just would not be in each other's space physically. It's been too long. I think it was like maybe the only time after everything was shut down was when we had a screening of Mulan. It was I want to say it was in early September, which, by the way, that screening had a completely different climate, shall we say, than the one that we had for Raya, and I'll get into the details there. But no, I just I want to take this time to really just be thankful for my friends here that were on this podcast. That I feel like we should just remind ourselves that it took a lot to be so strict and be so resolute about being cautious and taking precautions and keeping each other safe from this pandemic by not being in each other's space. And since, some of us have the vaccine now or are partially vaccinated, we have, we've eased the restrictions here at Red Spotlight. Shall we say. We're still adhering to the CDC guidelines, but again, this is the first time the 5 of us have been in the same space. I want to say easily. Well, I can't even recall. Recall the last time we were all in the same space. It may have even been years, to be honest. For sure. It may have even been years. So I can't be sure. I mean, all of us together at once. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. But it's crazy. It was just so nice to see you guys' faces again. It was just so nice to be in each other's company again. It was just something that I'd longed for so long. And, I mean, the pandemic hasn't been easy, and I won't lie. When I say that I wasn't jealous of other people, other, cousins or groups of friends who would always be with their group of friends as if nothing was happening, which only contributed to all of us, I think, just being only further frustrated with the lack of seriousness that was, clearly being exhibited by some of these people, by a lot of people. I just read a headline this last week that, spring breakers are at it again. Only this time, Florida seems to have some sense where they're actually arresting them for not adhering to the guidelines, which, hey, go Florida for doing that. Yeah, arrest the hell out of them. If you're not going to be... Go ahead.
They're learning.
One step at a time. Anyway, that was a long about way of saying it was nice to be together, and it was nice to see a new movie. I mean, what a better way to mark the occasion than to see a new movie. And let's talk about the screening that happened at my yard outside. David brought over a screen, a projector, and speaker, and I have to say I thought it was quite great in terms of quality. I like the picture, the size of the screen, and the speaker is where it really, I think, delivered. Overall, we had food, and I thought it was a really great experience. I think it definitely helped in this case that it was a great film that we were watching. I can say this, it's not like I'm comparing this winter screening to the summer screening we had, and man, they could not have been any more different. Like, I'll let you describe what it was like this past weekend, but let me just tell you, in September, it was humid, it was sweaty, there were bugs, I couldn't, like, the volume on the speaker was hard to hear. A movie that wasn't all that interesting in the first place. It was fun being together, but the whole thing just kind of felt like a wash because, a good or bad, the quality of the film can definitely make or break, I feel, the overall mood of the night. And that really wasn't what I was going for. What we experienced this past weekend is exactly what I was going for. Only in this case, perhaps I didn't need it to be that cold as it was. I'll let you go ahead and explain it on your end, David.
Basically, the weather was just the complete opposite of what you had in the summer. But honestly, though, the cold like really, really helped because the projector, it doesn't. I don't think it would have lasted the whole entire movie, especially like the technical difficulties that we had. But because of the cold, I was able to like keep it charging throughout the movie, and it never overheated at all. That's what happened. Like those few times that I first used it, like I would keep it in because it was running out of battery. Then like I don't know, 10 minutes later, it's overheating, so I had to like unplug it, then plug it back in after a while, and it's annoying. But that was the one great thing about having super cold weather was that. There, like once we got it started, no problem after.
Well, good thing we had one benefit out of it because, as far as I'm concerned, the rest of it was. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Perhaps on a minuscule level, it was a little. It wasn't the most comfortable. Like you'd want it to, not be too hot, too cold, but it was downright freezing. I mean. Again, like we're in an area where like if it gets to the 40s, that's considered like below freezing for our standards. But it was a very windy couple of days. It had just rained. Yeah, it was just goodness. It was it felt like we were freezing to death. And I had two sweaters on. The rest of you, I don't think only had one sweater, and I kept asking you guys in the first couple minutes of the screening, are you sure you don't want me to bring some blankets? Because I'm fucking freezing my ass here. And I think we had stopped it because we were waiting for someone else to arrive, and I was going to go get more blankets or any blankets when Kyle ran up behind me And here I thought he was going to ask to use the restroom, which of course wouldn't have been an issue. But then he was like, no, I'm freezing my ass off. And like, I literally asked you guys several times. I was about to get them anyway because I'm fucking cold here. And then you guys went to go get your blankets from, your car and everything. It was, so it was just an interesting arrangement. The whole thing. In retrospect, I probably should have had the hot chocolate out earlier, because it was fucking freezing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think it was just a great night, and we had a bonfire that we rolled in after we had put away the projector and all that stuff, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, it really helped.
Yeah, it's a shame we could, maybe next. I don't know, if I had known it was going to be that cold, I might have entertained or toyed around with the idea of like bringing in heaters. But damn, it was also kind of weird too because I think it was, there was some bats flying around nearby.
Yeah, how are there bats in Brawley? Like,
I don't know. That's the first I ever saw a bat in town.
I've heard like my sister and her friends say like they've seen some, but I'm just always like, how? I mean, even that day, like I didn't really see the bats flying, but I'm still like, how?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. All I can say is I think it was overall a success. We had a great time. And we will have a full review of Raya and the Last Dragon next week. So to give us more time with it, especially. I do want to rewatch it again. But let me just say, on just one viewing, very, very high marks across the board. I mean, across the board. I have been seeing some interesting, as with every movie, there are some interesting think pieces that have contrarian points of view. I know there were initial concerns with the regarding the area of representation, because this film is supposed to be basically off, Southeast Asian influences. And of course, no one on our panel can speak to that. We're not from that part of the world. We don't know anyone from that part of the world. I'm going to take a look at those if I can find them and see exactly what the concerns were. Although I think across the board, well, maybe I shouldn't say across the board. I should say for the most part, lately, most people would think that Disney has overall done a good job with the issue or the matter of representation. That being said, there have always been detractors. And if we look back to, I can think of some of the films recently, and I mean recently as in like 20, 25 plus years, that have caused Disney some headaches. They both have their defenders and their detractors, in particular to like Mulan, Pocahontas especially, and Moana also had some detractors in terms of its representation. And then here we are with Raya and the Last Dragon. So yeah, it's interesting where we are with that particular situation. And I'm also seeing, maybe not as much as I presumed, but I do remember going by an article that suggested perhaps the overall messaging of the film was problematic. You saw that?
Yeah, I heard one about it, and they made a few good points, but
I imagine they would. It's an interesting take. Yeah, I guess we'll see when we can pick that up next week when it comes to Raya and the Last Dragon. And since we're on that, let's get into some of the news items I have this week. So Raya and the Last Dragon is currently having a hybrid release. It is playing in theaters, unless you're Cinemark. Cinemark is not playing the movie because they did not agree to Disney's terms. They wanted more of the cut as usual, and Cinemark was like, no, we're not doing that. So they're not playing the movie. And that's probably why it's not doing anywhere near as well as it should. It is so far has grossed $15.8 million at the domestic box office in 2 weeks, I want to say. And again, this is the pandemic era of box office, so again, like that's pretty much on par with some of the bigger releases. Although it's not performing nearly as well as Tom and Jerry. We had a review for Tom and Jerry in our previous episode. It has been critically panned. It also is available to view right now on HBO Max, and yet that still seemed to draw some people out to the cinema and go out and see it. More so than Raya and the Last Dragon, which is curious in that regard. And then when you look at the other part of the hybrid release was that you can view it on Disney Plus, but if you pay $30 for it, that's the Premier Access, which they did with Mulan. And if you recall how we reported, that was not a success in the slightest in terms of how many people actually paid $30. Again, Disney's not saying much about it. They didn't say much about the numbers. They never released the numbers for Mulan, but we had third-party analysts that pretty much did the work, and they revealed some pretty awful figures. And it seems to be a pretty whopping consensus in the last 2 weeks that this Premier Access experiment has all but failed in every regard, because if you're just looking at the Disney Plus trending chart, which, granted is not, I think, as reliable as other trending charts are concerned, but it's currently in 5th place on Disney Plus, lagging behind The Simpsons, the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It's really not doing well in theaters as it should. And this may, in fact, really tell all of us how this is doing. They just announced earlier this week that Raya and the Last Dragon is being moved up, and on April the 2nd, it's going to be available to purchase on digital. April the 2nd. We're in the 17th of March, which is the day of this recording. That's like not even a month. That's just basically a month that it's been available on Disney Plus for $30. But what probably would happen is it'll hit digital on April the 4th, and it'll be a $20 price tag? $25?
Yeah, basically.
And this was announced after, obviously, Raya had a week and a half, 2 weeks on Premier Access. David, I want you to take all of this and tell me what you're thinking, but it sounds to me like this is just a resounding failure on every level.
No, for sure. So I think part of the reason why Tom and Jerry is doing more successful is, I think it might be because of the parents. I'm sure some of them might have grown up watching Tom and Jerry as a kid, and so they went, hey, I might like this too, like far more than Raya. And so that's partly one of the reasons. The other one is Raya cost $30 to watch, and no one, like, even some of the people who praise the movie, they're like, it's still not worth $30. Like, and then what was it? Trolls World Tour. That one was just digital purchase, right?
Yes, that did not premiere on a streaming service. It was just basically premiered on digital. I don't I want to say it was $20.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, that one's $20, and I think it might have done just even more successful than Tom and Jerry, like at this point for sure. And so I don't understand why they don't do the same thing. Just make it 20. Hell, make it 15. Like, you have very loyal Disney fans. Like, they'll pay for it and all. The reason why we did it, I mean, specifically my sister, is because me, you, and like the rest of the Red Spotlight group, we were all gonna watch it. It's worth the $30, like, on the certain situation that we're in. Everyone else, like, if you're a single person who is just looking for something new to watch, they're not going to pay $30. They can wait for Godzilla. They can wait for the Snyder Cut. It's fine. But yeah, this is just, I don't know why they're missing the mark of just like, hey, it's the price. Lower it.
Which is exactly what you said and what I said. What was the issue with Mulan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the movie was terrible. But that wasn't the reason why people didn't pay $30. It was because it was $30. And paying $30 to view a movie on streaming, whether it be on a service or on digital, is to many people outrageous. An unseemly amount of money. And when you think about the primary audience for this movie, it is who's the one that does the purchasing? It's the families, it's the parents, right? Because this is a family movie. People aren't used to only spending up to $20 if they must for a digital purchase, or maybe a cutoff point is far lower at $10, $15 to rent a movie for 48 hours, depending on what it is they're looking for. But they sure as hell would never, I don't even think there is a single movie out there, if you look on Apple or Amazon, that even has the stupid price tag of $30 to rent a movie. Like, that is just, that's just not how things go. And we're talking about families here. Look, you can, and Alexis and Kyle, who've defended the Premier Access price point in the past, have said, well, look, it actually is more affordable for families, let's say for a family of 4, when you compare that to what the cost would be if they were to go to a theater. But I would counter that by saying, but that's just not how people's brains work. They're not, they don't go, that may be the case that you're saying, but that's just not where their minds go to. They probably think of it as two different commodities. Like, when you go and spend $100+ on a movie theater, that entails perhaps an outing, an experience, that's a whole day. Whereas paying $30 for something you usually pay, I don't know, $5, $10 for, to watching your TV, I think that's the standpoint from which families are coming from, and why it is so clear to me that this Disney Premier Access thing has completely failed.
Yeah, no, for sure. The thing though with families, it's not just like watching it this one time. No, they're buying this new Disney movie in hopes that their kids will watch it 50 billion times and like have a distraction. So like, for that, it is worth $30. But the thing though that Disney needs to see is that the people that keep coming back into your movie theaters, the ones that keep like wanting to rewatch it, are the people around my age, like 20-something-year-olds who are, again, very loyal to Disney, but like they don't have families. It's just they need something to watch, and so they love Disney. They're gonna go watch it multiple times. If a friend of theirs hasn't seen it, they'll go again. Like those are the ones that are giving you the money. And if like, you know, in these times where people my age are struggling with either they don't have a job or the job that they have just sucks, you know, you got to make it cheaper for them. And so like I get your family company and all that, but like the family is not really the ones making you a bunch of money.
Bottom line is no one of any demographic is up for these prices. Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand why that wasn't evident to begin with. Yes, granted, Mulan had endless scandals, of issues. I mean, they had a problematic, well, from the perspective of the Chinese, they had a problematic star. The Chinese media completely blacklisted them from being covered. It was a disastrous performance at the Chinese box office. After it was revealed that they let them film near concentration camps, modern day concentration camps in China, it was, and then of course the movie was terrible. So like, it was just an unfortunate collection of bad headlines, but that to me, that never really distracted from why this ultimately failed. That didn't help, but it was the price point.
That was the complaint.
It was $30.
That was the complaint from the beginning, and it's still going to be the complaint now for Mulan. You know, like, oh yes, I know there's other stuff, but like that's going to be the first thing that's brought up with Mulan, is that it's too expensive. I don't want to pay for that.
Well, Mulan and Raya now, and I mean, I just don't like. It's a shame in this case because, well, we'll look at the similarities with Mulan and Raya. Both of those films were entitled to what all of the other films were entitled to, which was a theatrical release to have their moment in the sun. And look at the similarities between both of those two films. Yes, the Mulan stuff, the baggage would have been there, but I think it would have been a huge success in a normal year with no pandemic at the box office regardless. Same with Raya. But then also look at how much it would have meant to a particular community of people. In particular, like Asian Americans. Yeah. And they both of those big movies were saddled with this. It's an unfortunate circumstance, or happenstance that we happen to be, especially with the recent news. It sucks. It really does. You know? And both of those films, and we talk about constantly here about how important representation matters. It's important for people to see themselves on the screen. This isn't David and I saying that we're promoting a talking point that is false. No. This is so far away from what matters here. Let me tell you something, as someone who has spoken with people who consider themselves to be part of the Asian American community, the Asian American acting community. It is very important for them that these films are successful, that these films are viewed by as many people as possible, for them primarily to see themselves on the screen, to see them validated, to see themselves seen on the big screen. And the Academy Award nominations, which we'll get into next week, is a big day for them. Remember, 1% of all leading roles in Hollywood happen to belong to Asian Americans. 1%. This year, there are 2 Asian actors in the Best Lead Actor category at the Academy Awards. I mean, these things are important, and I know this wasn't at all a calculus from Disney that, oh, these films were not going to be successful anyway, so we're just going to dump them on streaming. Of course not. That's not the case. If both of these films were released theatrically, they would have been runaway box office hits.
For sure.
But we're just in a different time now. And we are not in any way aware as to how or when this is going to come back to normal. A lot of us this year, I think of 2021 is in all industries and all aspects of life is just going to be us sitting and waiting. Okay, when is the point where we can officially call time of death on Corona and we can get back to business as usual? We've made great strides. A lot of us are vaccinated. Some places are opening up now, but it's not anywhere. We're not done yet. We still got some more mileage to go on this. And yeah, as far as those films are concerned, it's just unfortunate. And I feel for that community in particular. But I would hope that Disney sees the incredible response that Raya received, especially from critics and from audiences. And I would hope that they understand that there is some staying power in Raya and a potential franchise of sorts. They already announced as part of upcoming programming for Disney Plus, projects for Tiana and Moana. Raya right here, there's some potential in there.
Oh, for sure. Especially the way it ended. Big cast, so many stories to tell. And just...
This could be a big sensation if you really do understand that it could be. I really hope that we're not left, in a couple of years from now, where people forget movies like Soul or Onward or Raya even exist because they weren't in theaters.
Wait, I have a crazy thought. Do you think after this whole pandemic is over, if Disney decided, hey, we're gonna release both Raya and Soul in theaters, do you think that would be a good idea?
Theatrical releases right now are in a weird place.
Yeah,
I think there is validity to the idea that to enthuse people to get back into the theaters, you want to have some big names. We're going to roll out some films from the past. We may even put some movies that you didn't get the chance to see, like Raya or Soul in the theater. Maybe they could, or Hamilton. They could possibly do that. I can't say with any kind of I can't be sure that they're going to do that.
No. It's
possible.
It's just like I do want Raya to have like a big success, And
I would be there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I would be there to see it.
That's kind of why I was okay with the whole streaming release of some of these movies, is because I thought, if I don't mind this, maybe it can be successful. But honestly, I feel like they should take a chance of just going afterwards, hey, we're releasing these in theaters now too. After this whole pandemic is over, obviously, I don't know. For me, I think that could be a good idea, especially because of the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lot of delays in their movies, and if they just need something to just roll out quickly,
yeah, I would be all for that. I think it's. I can't imagine it'd cost too much to do it. Whether or not they'd want to, I'm not sure. But I would imagine at some point there will be re-releases to some movies. There always are, I know they'll probably release Avengers Endgame again, because Avengers Endgame and Avatar seemingly have this thing where they have to leapfrog the other. So, yeah, I'm sure something like that will happen. But again, no one's really sure about what the point of that will be. But right now, the space that we're living in, it does feel like the beginning of the end. In a way, it does feel like a turning point, Mm-hmm. And let me get into a potential release where Disney is not entirely sure. And then we can kind of tie that into this discussion about the Premier Access and the future of it. Disney CEO Bob Chapek said today, in fact, that a final decision on the release strategy for Black Widow, whether it would be theatrical only, a hybrid of theatrical and Disney Plus with Premiere Access, will be a last-minute call. They do not know what they're doing with Black Widow. I don't know either.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I know. Like, God, honestly, I really don't know. Because, like, for right now, they're good with releasing Winter Soldier now. Like, I don't think they really need to do much. But after that, though, that's when they're going to be pretty screwed. And then Spider-Man's coming out this year, right? At the end of December.
That's true, yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. No, I mean, I would say take a chance around August and September to release Black Widow in theaters.
A couple of issues with that.
I know. I'm sure there is.
Well, August is when the Eternals is supposed to premiere.
Oh, okay.
By Chloe Zhao. And then in July, Shang-Chi.
July, Shang-Chi, okay.
So the way that it is right now is May, Black Widow, July, Shang-Chi. Excuse me, not August, November. Okay, this is weird. November is when the Eternal is supposed to come out, right? Or was it August? I don't know the months exactly, but you have 4 movies that are supposed to be released this year that have become because of Marvel Studios. You have the Black Widow, followed by Shang-Chi, followed by Really? Another Asian film that's going to be done? Okay, this is... Okay. That's okay. We just went on a whole thing about that. I'm not going to get into it, but that's really... That movie needs to be theatrical. I mean, if they're smart about that. Then Eternals. And then Spider-Man 3. All by the end of the year. If you move Black Widow all the way to August... I don't know what happens to those other Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. But then what's the alternative, right? Do they just go ahead and say it's staying on May 1st and we're going to do the exact same thing we did with Raya where we'll play it theatrically and you can also pay $30 for Black Widow? Let me ask you this question. We just said that $30 is too much for people. Mm-hmm. Do you think Black Widow could be the exception to the rule? Do you think more people would be enticed to pay $30 for Black Widow because it's a Marvel movie?
I do think more people might go for it and all that, especially if you do a theater release also. Like, I do think Black Widow is going to be far better than Raya and Mulan. But if they won't, in terms of how it performs, or you mean the demand for the movie? In terms of how it performs. Okay. Yeah, but like if they do want a big success though, lower the price. Like $15, $20 easily. And
the problem is, you think they would have gotten the message the first time around. I know. Do you think they're getting it now? I don't think so. I think at this point they're gonna want to set their foot down and stay in the $30. Which, let me just remind you. Okay, so this is the thing. If you want to watch Raya and the Last Dragon right now, you have to pay $30 on top of your monthly Disney Plus subscription. However, if you just wait till April the 2nd, or actually, maybe it's April 4th.
I think it was 2nd.
Yeah, 2nd. Never mind. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong numbers. April 2nd. You probably would spend $10 less to own it. Plus special features, if you're so inclined. But here's the thing. At the same time, you're going to have 2 options to basically view Raya. You can pay $30 for it on Disney Plus, or you could pay $20 for it on digital.
I mean, hopefully they see an increase after going digital, and maybe they'll learn.
But here's the thing, David. That doesn't make any sense.
I know.
Like, you're giving people a cheaper, more affordable option, not on your streaming server. You're going to have both of those two options at the same time. Meanwhile, it hits Blu-ray later that month as well, in April. And then I believe June is when Raya will be on Disney Plus without having to pay $30. So they're going to keep that Premier Access paywall all the way until June. All the while, if you want to see that movie, you can pay $20 on digital. But if you don't want to spend nothing on Raya, which, I mean, hey, that's what you want to do, wait till June.
Mm-hmm. It's dumb.
I don't know how much money you reap from that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just you know, new times, pandemic times, people are trying to make money however they can, but like this just doesn't seem... Maybe Black Widow can be that movie, but still, like, I don't think that $30 is going to convince anyone. And so what is the alternative? Well, look, let's see. Will theaters be open? Well, I have here that AMC Theaters will have 98% of its locations in the U.S. open by this Friday, March the 19th. They're opening 40 plus locations here in California. They just opened theaters in New York City. AMC Theaters, the largest chain in the United States, will have almost 100% of its locations open for the first time in months, if not a year. You'd have to think that is going to maybe enthuse more people, but the problem is barely anyone's going to watch a movie right now. We've had several weeks now where we've had some new releases like Judas and the Black Messiah, Tom and Jerry, now Raya and the Last Dragon. No one's going to the movies right now.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to the movies. You'd have to think that when the vaccine is... I don't even know what to say, David. I can't predict when it's going to be more enticing for people to come back to the movies. I think we're waiting and seeing the numbers to see how they come back.
Mm-hmm.
But May still may be too close, and for a theatrical only release, maybe. And then, well, what do you think?
I think May is too close of a call for just a theatrical release. Oh man, I don't know, man. It's just again, like you just said, like you don't know the outcome of people's reaction to this, or how people are going to respond. But also, we really can't predict the success of this. You know, before it was just, oh yeah, Black Widow, $1 million for sure. But now it's honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it sunk lower than Raya did.
Black Widow, you mean?
I mean, if it's only just only theaters, you know, I really wouldn't be surprised.
Well, like, I think there's going to be a lot of people vaccinated by May.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not May the 1st. That may be cutting it a little too close. You know, the president just said the other day on a national address that by May the 1st, by the end of May, every adult should be able to get a vaccine if they want one. How about this, though? We know that Loki, the Disney Plus series, was pushed to June. Why don't... and I don't know if they would be willing to do this. And I also have no knowledge about how far along they are in terms of production. I know Black Widow's done. It's been done for almost a year at this point. But as far as what's it called? Loki? Yeah, I can't be entirely sure about where they are in terms of their production schedule. But that being said, could it be a possibility that maybe you can push Loki to May and then push Black Widow to June to give it a little bit of wiggle room to see how the conditions are then?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I 100% agree. They need something to fill to get the audience attention, and I think putting up Loki into an earlier date would definitely be very, very helpful to them, or any type of content really. Just to only like Disney's on anything on Disney Plus, like if they can move it up to an earlier date, just so they can fill up the gap between whatever they release now to Black Widow, and hopefully it'll just give them more time, everyone else more time to get vaccinated or just feel more comfortable going back to the movies.
Yeah, in fact, like I think that to me sounds like the safest course of action. Like I would be pushing, if we can, let's push Loki to May, let's get Black Widow to June, and maybe that's the last we'll have to do it. But May just seems like we can't be sure if it'll be too early, but we also can't be sure if it's just not if it'll be too late. Like again, the situation that we're in is changing by the week. So perhaps by the time we get to May, things have improved so much that it'll come out right in time. But I would be pushing for June if we can do that. Mm-hmm. And I know they have a lot of other movies to like figure out. Like there's Jungle Cruise, there's Luca, Shang-Chi, Eternals. What happens to those? Cruella also I think is coming out this year. So
that seems like it's a done movie. Push it up. But I don't know. I'm sure they do have like a lot of content that they can push up, but I don't know. It's just I do believe, like if this was a regular year, like no pandemic, for sure Black Widow is going to be the biggest success out of like all the things that are coming out. And so I just think they just need to take a chance of giving everyone more time to get comfortable. Like, he got something there.
Yeah, it's a conundrum if there ever was one. Mm-hmm. All of this, you know. But yeah, how do you think? So from this business standpoint, I think you and I have established how we feel about Premier Access. It is just a complete failure. Mm. And we don't think it'll be that much better even if Black Widow was involved. Maybe a little bit, but maybe not all that much. Where do you think, or how do you think Warner Brothers is feeling right now with their decision, with how they're doing things, where their movies are, you know, debuting simultaneously in theaters as well as on HBO Max for no added cost, but for only 30 days, and then it's removed from the service? Do you think that's working out for them? I mean, I've heard nothing, but I mean, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, it could work out for them, I guess, because it's also, I mean, it's both theaters and digital, right? Like on all other stuff. Then yeah, I think it could work out for them because I mean, again, the reason why a lot of these movies make so much money is because they have rewatchability. Like I can see Godzilla, if it's a big success on HBO Max, I could see them like people wanting to go to the theaters to watch it again, you know? I mean, at least after the 30 days, obviously, but it could be a big success for them. And if not,
I guess to me, the thing that is the most curious about this, I think with Wonder Woman 1984, Judas and the Black Messiah, The Little Things, and now Tom and Jerry, and I think in the next month or so so far with those movies, what's really curious is that they're available for free if you have an HBO Max subscription at the same time that you can go to the movies and watch it. But what I find the most curious is that when, in particular with Tom and Jerry, people still went to go to the theaters and watch those movies. That's interesting. That's not how I would have expected things to go. So you got to wonder what this will amount to in the future.
I mean, again, though, Tom and Jerry's a special case because it's a family.
It's a name.
It's a name. Yeah. It's a family movie. That's why I like Godzilla. I think the big one's gonna be Godzilla. See how that does.
Yeah, and that one is the next barometer to see how much that draws to the theaters. I want to caution people, though, that even though it got a lot of great trailer hits, the last Godzilla films have not performed well at all from a box office standpoint. So I'd argue Godzilla really isn't much of a draw anymore than it used to be. Maybe things have changed because of the trailer. Maybe things would have changed by then because more people would have been vaccinated and would be willing to go to a theater. Who knows? Honestly, who the fuck knows? We're still trying to gauge where all of this will land, but like, yeah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into a lot of this WandaVision discourse. David, we did a 3-hour show last week with Peter about our review of the WandaVision finale. It more or less seemed as if we all kind of reached a consensus of sorts on how we felt about it. And we've had, good God, 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks since the finale was dropped on Disney Plus, and we've gotten a chance to look at the discourse, a lot of the talking points, a lot of the narratives that are formed as a result of how things ended up. How do you think the conversation overall is for WandaVision right now? And what I mean by that is, have you noticed an overall positive result, some negative narratives popping up? What are some of the things that you've seen that have struck conversation because of the WandaVision finale?
I've seen a few negative responses, but it's the dumb ones, you know, the there's no Mephisto, there's my theories are wrong, SJW crap, which I mean, I don't know, this is like the least SJW thing that they've done. But I mean, I don't know. Actually, I literally haven't seen that many positive stuff. But to be fair, though, I haven't watched that many reviews about the show. Like, I think I've seen one. It's just some slight confusion of the finale about where it went, and we talked about it. Like, you know, we thought it was going to lead to some stuff, but it just kind of didn't really pull through that much. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know like what the overall conversation or like what their overall thoughts that people have about this show.
I would say the response has been mostly positive. And I can't sit here and say that the WandaVision discourse has reached hateful levels like it has with other projects. But there are definitely some detractors, and perhaps we'll have a little bit more insight into how everything was made with the the creators, Jac Schaeffer, the showrunner, and Matt Shackman, the primary director for these episodes. They've been basically going on an interview tour, and they've been fielding a lot of questions. And I shared some of that with you, David, and I'm going to start reading some of these, and we'll take them one by one, but we'll see how. Well, we'll just see, right? We'll see what we think, and we'll see the reaction that some of these have caused. So, this is a hilarious one. Jac Schaeffer, she's the showrunner here. Let me just tell you something based on reading a lot of her interviews these past 2 weeks. She is someone that clearly isn't a comic book person, and I love her for that. I love her for that, and you should too, those of you listening. You don't need to be a comic book nerd. You don't need to be a fan of superhero movies, really, if you want to make something like this. You just know how. All you need to know is basically how to tell a good story. Mm-hmm. And what I found in a lot of her responses was someone who just wanted to tell a story of Wanda's grief. That was it. That was the thing.
Yep.
That's what this show was about. And I also do appreciate a lot of her. She's not at all embarrassed by her supposed lack of comic book knowledge or what Marvel is doing, beyond WandaVision, where certain things are going to go. Like, she's just very dry in that sense. Like, I'll give you an example here. So she was asked a question about what or where exactly was Wanda at that cabin in the mountains. There's a second post-credit sequence at the end of the episode. And she gave as her response 3 words. I don't know. I don't care. Who cares, really? That's an interesting question, sure, but it's like, I respect to where it's like, I don't know. I don't care. Yeah. Really, I think she meant to say I don't care, but like, I don't know. And that was the response.
I think it just shows that she had no plan of like, I think that was the big thing, that she had no plan in tying it into Doctor Strange. You had the line of the Sorcerer Supreme stuff, but maybe they just, I don't know, that could have been like a Kevin Feige thing. But it's just like, if you had the ending of her going somewhere to like train or look up her magic or something, you would have thought that maybe Kevin Feige would have come up and be like, oh, instead of the cabin, just add the what is it, Sanctum Sanctorum, and that's it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they had absolutely no plans to tie this into Doctor Strange, like directly, at least.
Yeah, I did read a lot of the interviews, and I didn't have it written down here, but I do want to say that there was communication between the WandaVision team and the Doctor Strange team, as far as like just in the sense that there was a producer at Marvel whose job was to make sure everything was like not contradicting something that came before or after. Like, there was even a producer from Captain Marvel 2 who was knew what was happening in that movie and was making sure all the Monica stuff was quote unquote accurate from what they were planning on doing with that movie. So, but there wasn't any kind of like mention of, oh yeah, the teams got together to make sure that what we're doing here is paid off in Doctor Strange. A lot of us had this fear and this concern. That being said, a lot of people wanted WandaVision to basically be the first part of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. They wanted it to be like the first act in a movie. And you see, and we discussed this last week, I'm kind of happy that Disney Plus shows are not going to be that, because then they won't stand on their own and they'll just feel like setup. And as we discussed with Peter last week, I just don't understand the perspective of fans. Like, you just, do you not comprehend that you're really hindering the impact of storytelling when you do something like that? You know, when you're basically having everything having to be dependent on what comes next. Like, it's like you don't know how to read a TV show or a movie. It has to stand on its own. It can't just like fly into the next thing. Like, and you know, I'm not going to forget that tweet that I read, I think a few weeks back, that said, and I think I read it out loud on one of our shows, where this person who was basically a self-affirmed Marvel stan was saying, the problem with people who are saying what I'm saying is that you're looking at Marvel as films and TV shows. That's a serious response to something that is supposed to be a movie and a TV show.
Yeah, it's just...
So my issue is that I shouldn't be looking at it as a movie or a TV show.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah. So the aerospace engineer. Was the aerospace engineer an intentional plant for misdirection? We talked about how last week the character of Dottie was one of those characters that was put in there for the art of misdirection. And this is what Jac Schaeffer said. No, we did not plant that intentionally. That wasn't meant to cause the furor that it caused. It was a surprise to me. That's an example of one of the fan theorizing snowballs that got a little bit away from us. And I didn't even know about the John Krasinski, Reed Richards fan casting. And there was something about Evan's performance on the show that made everybody cameo hungry. And that wasn't a priority for us. A lot of hot cameos. We were really preoccupied with telling a good story. So the aerospace engineer and the general lust for cameos were both surprises to me. But still very fun. I applaud all the ingenuity and all the theorizing. It's all great. David?
Yeah, again, this is just the fans' fault. Like I said, you played yourself. From the very beginning. I remember that line of, I have an engineer friend that can help us out. Like, I just saw that as a normal person saying, just talking about, oh, okay, cool. This is how she's going to get back into the hex. That's it. Like, that's all I saw it as. I didn't see it as, oh my God, Reed Richards. And I did play into the theories just because everyone else was saying it. I'm like, oh yeah, it could be him. That'd be cool. Whatever. But at the same time, though, like, I don't know. Well, what the problem is, though, too? It's this thing of people praising Kevin Feige for planning out so much stuff, but, like, he really wasn't. I think the big one for me is Captain America Civil War. The writers in that show, they had no idea what to do with that story. The only thing they knew was the villain, and it wasn't Zemo. It was that guy in the computer in Winter Soldier. Zola. He was supposed to be the villain in Captain America 3. But Kevin Feige literally just went to their office and just said, Civil War, and walked out. And the writers were like, oh shit, that's a great idea. And they worked something out. Like, this isn't some big thing. And then the writers, they didn't know about Spider-Man. I can't remember if they had planned Black Panther, but what they did was genius, is that they wrote the story in a way so that if Kevin Feige came up to them to add another character, they were ready to put a new character in. Like, they had that plan. But for it to be Spider-Man, they had no idea. So again, this, this every single movie, all these shows, especially for Falcon and Winter Soldier, don't look at every little thing as like some kind of setup, because you never really know.
I mean, that's an interesting point that you bring up there, and that is the over praise, or the over...
It's overpraise.
Sure. Kevin Feige is a great producer, and he's the president of Marvel Studios, and he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for getting all of these movies to even exist and be successes in the first place. He's not the director and he's not the writer of any one of these movies. He's a great producer, and that's what he is. And to me, you see, I've had an issue for the longest time now where not just the Marvel stans, but also the journalists and the media, as well as critics, all have this thing in common. They all pretty much treat Kevin Feige as if he was the one that was making all of this, and he himself and him. This is where I kind of lose patience, because the Marvel stans in particular, they're the ones who are supposed to, like, you know, pride themselves on being the true Marvel fans and everything. And it's like, you have no understanding at all as to how any of this even worked. Like, not enough praise is being given to the individual writers and directors of the films. You know, in particular with the one that I really noticed with the most was with Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, the writers that you were just referring to.
Yes, I can remember that.
As well as Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors, for Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and with Endgame. And look, there's no accounting for taste. Everything is subjective. You can like what you like. But that isn't even the issue here. The issue is people who, like me, love those films, but in most cases treat those films as if the person who really put it all together and had, you know, conjured it up, had planned and mapped everything out years in advance, was Kevin Feige. It's just ridiculous to me. It's completely ridiculous to me. Like, and how disrespectful it is to Marcus and McFeely and the Russos. They're the ones who primarily deserve the credit for making those work as movies. Not Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
And yet, anytime it's brought up, it's like, I don't know. It always makes me feel just, you know, PO'd at the whole thing. You know, any way you slice it. And even people who, okay, that creeped me out. That really, oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't know what I was watching there. Holy crap. I was like, and she was looking at me with a funny face too. I'm sorry, everyone. We were just interrupted. David's door was opened by some kind of she-beast.
She just wanted to ask if she can borrow my car.
Okay. She scared me. So Alexis Moreno, who you may know from our shows, just randomly opened the door and was making a face. And I didn't know what I was looking at. I thought I was looking behind me, as if somebody was opening the door behind me. But in fact, it was you. So I was so freaked out in that moment. I wasn't even sure what I was saying. The point is this. I was even seeing some tweets that were saying that the Snyder Cut was better than Infinity War, because there's this group of people who... No, there is this group of... Isn't that a laughable thing to say? But there's this group of people who are out there who are, you know... media people who are like, Infinity War is not a good movie. It's just like, any way you slice it, I honestly feel like Marcus McFeely and the Russos don't get any credit whatsoever for the success that they actually made. And at the same time, when it comes to Kevin Feige, you create this narrative that he can do no wrong. And I'm sorry, that's horse shit.
Mm-hmm.
That is horse shit. Kevin Feige is not above making mistakes, quote unquote. Let's spend some time right now. I think Kevin Feige, with all due respect to him, and WandaVision to the least extent may fit the bill, but I think he needs to spend more time on telling a story in which each aspect is tied in thematically. It's the basics of storytelling 101.
Mm-hmm.
And I think scratching the surface on a relevant issue in the world does not mean your movie is saying anything. And they can be saying something, but you're really saying nothing. Like, if you don't get credit for having a powerful message, like in Black Panther, but you don't really say much of anything about what's happening in society. Bless you, David.
Thank you. I just sneezed.
I mean, I think especially with Phase 3, I think there were a number of missteps. I think Peyton Reed is a mediocre individual. Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Ant-Man and the Womp Womp, it was probably the most boring thing Marvel's ever made. Captain Marvel is your Superman. And while it may be enjoyable, David and I enjoy it just fine. It's fine, but there's a problem when you call it fine.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't have been just fine. It should have been great. And you dropped the ball on that.
Yeah.
Yes, you made $1 billion, but it should have been a great movie, and it wasn't. Black Panther should have been far greater than what it actually was. I know no one else in the world will agree with that, but it could have been a lot greater than what it actually was. But it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not pretend that there weren't any kind of missteps. And let's look at look. You have 50 characters in these Avengers films. I wish shows like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I wish there would have existed opportunities to have fleshed out those side characters in TV shows. Guess what? There were shows that were airing on the air that were tied into the Marvel Universe, but because there was a spat between you and whose name shall not be mentioned, there was no synergy between the two forces on TV and movies with Marvel. So this is what we got. Look, I hope that these Disney Plus shows, like with WandaVision has just done, with what Falcon Winter Soldier will turn these likable secondary characters into actual characters beyond just having a likable personality. Because now they're being given the space to be given such that. And so the fact that these shows exist and are doing character work kind of implies that it wasn't perfect in the first place when they were in the other movies, when it comes to those secondary characters. Yes, it wasn't their film. Yes. But not everything Kevin Feige does is good, great, or perfect. And people have to start deluding themselves. The thing that frustrates me is there are legitimate areas of criticism. Feige just seems far too complacent. And well, we'll see, right? With WandaVision, that was the first instance where I felt like, wow, there was an attempt to do something here beyond just being the usual generic Marvel stuff. Mm-hmm. We'll see how Falcon and Winter Soldier does. But I just find it troubling when people just start to to claim a person can do no wrong, whereas, and this is the really insidious part here, it's like with Kathleen Kennedy, it seems to be the opposite when it comes to the fan base. From their perspective, she can do no right as far as they're concerned. Mm-hmm. And to this day, they're still trying to get her ass fired. Whereas Peter just said last week, the hell are you assholes trying to get her ass fired for? She's given you everything you wanted. She's given you all the shows you wanted. She's making every part of Legends canon again. Because that's all you care about. And you still want to get her fired? And you still say that she's not at all involved with how Mandalorian has been a success or for all the other live action shows that you want. She's the one that made those things happen. She signs the damn, paperwork. So what's really going on here? I'm sorry, that went on a completely different tangent. Anyway, back to what I was reading off here, where she was saying people went cameo hungry. Yeah, they really went cameo hungry, and I'm gonna stand by this. It's the Mandalorian syndrome. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's like the Mandalorian, all of a sudden, has made people think that all TV shows that are associated with cinematic universes, all that they should be about is just reminding us that they're connected to other things, and that every other episode should be featuring a cameo from a legacy player, because The Mandalorian Season 2 did just that. And so that means, for some reason, that created the expectation that every show that is connected to an interconnected cinematic universe should be about featuring faces that we already know on a cameo basis. And that's just horrendous storytelling.
Mm-hmm. It's not even a story, though. Like, if you just do that, like, there's no story if you do that. There's no story in The Mandalorian. Like, whatever you thought of WandaVision, whether it was good, bad, or just whatever, at least they attempted to make a story. At least, in the end, people understood Wanda even more. I mean, at least that's what I think. And so...
Yeah, Schaeffer says here, we were really preoccupied with telling a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at The Mandalorian Season 2, you mean this is what was so inexplicable to many of us, is why it was that season, that show, was being portrayed as something that was preoccupied with telling a good story. Why is it that while all of you were crying at Luke Skywalker killing a bunch of robots, did it not occur to any one of you why he was even in here in the first place? Did it not occur to you that his presence was basically stealing the spotlight from the actual main character of the show?
Because here's the thing, Mandalorian, I do think it is trying to praise the... What's it called? It's praising Star Wars, basically. And so, like, The Mandalorian and the WandaVision are the difference between caring about the fandom and caring about the story. Because that's the thing, though, is that people are all... Because, oh, God. The thing, though, is that the people that hated The Last Jedi... they keep mentioning over and over. It's like, oh, these writers or this person, they don't care about the fan base. They don't care about the fandom. They don't care about the lore and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I saw that Dave Filoni and, what's his name?
Jon Favreau.
Yeah, they care about Star Wars. They care about the fan base. You got a shit story. You didn't get a story at all. Like, you got your fandom. Cool. But at least with WandaVision, yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen Doctor Strange in this. I would have loved to see what they did with Mephisto. But, in the end, like, I know what they wanted to... I know what these people wanted to say and how they wanted to, like... And how they wanted to do it. At least what WandaVision did right is that it didn't praise the fan base, it praised the medium. And what they praised in this was comedy. And they fucking nailed it.
I don't know what to add to that, but sure. Yeah. Another quote here by Schaeffer, more about the aerospace engineer. And look, this is really more evidence to just show you that this is never intended to be anything else. The character is Major Goodner, and she's named after one of my friends, Allie Goodner, that I went to Princeton with. I made that choice because that character represents every time one of these women has come through for me and every time they've been good at their job. That's all it was, people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just need to we need to understand these Marvel shows, thankfully, are not The Mandalorian. They're not concerned with reminding you or, filling your faces with cameos. Hopefully, with this show being a good indication, they're concerned with telling a good story. And in retrospect, perhaps it was a bit too foolhardy for any one person to think that this one Marvel television show was going to be responsible for introducing X-Men, mutants, multiverse, and Fantastic Four. Yeah. We might need to check ourselves here. And then again, the Screen Rant asked a question about if there were any other characters that were planned. Again, for more cameos. Because of restructuring or scheduling, right? And then one word response. No. No. She was asked, was Ralph the witness that Jimmy Woo spoke of? And she said, that is a no comment from me.
I thought it was for a second. I thought that was one of the paperwork that was there. That's what it was, but I guess not. He's just an actor.
I guess not. Mm-hmm. What about the beekeeper? I love that question, she says. That's also a right? But it's more of a no comment. I don't know. Pass. Next question is what it is. That one, she did not know, I guess, but Matt Shackman was asked this question, and he basically gave a long answer saying, well, he, like everybody else that was in this Westview situation, basically was fine and back to normal by the end of all of it. So for those out there wondering what happened to the beekeeper, if common sense wasn't the answer, there is your official answer. Mm-hmm. I apologize if that sounded condescending, but what can you do? Here's a big one. Some more clarification on Evan Peters. And we should note, particularly, and I don't know, you have to let me know, David, how Alexis feels, but I know some of we had a show last week with David and Peter and myself, and we all were of the mind where well, I love the Ralph Boner twist. David was I guess more indifferent to it. Kyle hated it. What did Alexis feel about it?
I don't think she said anything about it. Nah.
Okay. Well, I guess there's that. But Fantasy Fair Podcast will be having a review of the WandaVision season at some point, so make sure to keep your ears out for that. So here's clarification on Evan Peters. It was always the intention that Evan be fake Pietro. That he was not, in fact, the MCU Quicksilver. Then beyond that, I can't actually remember when those decisions were made. It was very early tied to his storyline that he was Agatha's puppet. He was a young man living nearby. She had taken over his house and was holding him hostage. We really loved it. It was at the service of Agatha's character because we loved the idea that every time she would complain about her husband, she was actually speaking out loud about the man she was holding hostage. It was just so mean. I need more of this. I love these answers because there's just, it's fun. And this is just getting, to hear behind the scenes of writing. And it's what I love about this answer is I think what I'm sure a lot of people listening are not all that enthused about is the complete absence and the complete disregard about whether or not this adheres to, notions of fan service or, what the comics did or what the fans want. This is just something the writers thought was funny and they did it. And you notice in this entire answer, it's there was seemingly no discussion And this is an interesting part of this is an interesting point because I think, as we've established last week, it is very fair to critique this aspect of the show in terms of like how they were handling the whole Evan Peters thing. It turns out, based on these answers, they didn't really intend for people to think this was the MCU. I mean, this was the Fox version of Quicksilver. Mm-hmm. They didn't intend for people to think that this meant multiverse was going to happen on this show. And I have to ask you this question, David. Do you feel perhaps that was a mistake on their part to have not had that occurred to them? That this could be... Because a lot of people were really convinced this was like the Fox Pietro and this was going to be the opening of multiverse. And if you think it was, why didn't someone from Marvel and Kevin Feige think or say that perhaps this could be an issue for them? Based on optics alone.
Oh, man. I mean, I don't know why someone wouldn't have told them, because, you would think maybe Kevin Feige had, like, an idea of what would happen about this. Or maybe he did know and he just, like, he didn't care. Maybe he liked their idea so much that he's just going to stick with that. But either way, though, he should have told them, like, hey, just so you know, if you do this, though, it's probably going to lead to this and this and this. So it's just a heads up.
Maybe another example of how Kevin Feige really isn't micromanaging everything.
Yeah, that's probably it, too.
Although, when it comes to stuff like this, there should be... I'm not going to say that there should be a team of quote-unquote nerds or experts that are, like, gatekeeping, like they get final say, but there should probably be a team of people around them to just give the writers a heads up. Oh, by the way, this happens and this happens. Also, if you do this, this could be a possible reaction by the fans. Like, you're basically going to get people's attention. You're going to get them asking, hey, what does this mean ultimately? So it just seems a little weird that this wasn't expected at all.
Mm-hmm.
She was asked further about how concerned, straight up they were asked this question, how concerned were they that fans may be disappointed that he wasn't the true Quicksilver? And this is what she said. Well, that wasn't a big concern. Straight up, that wasn't a big concern. Because there's not a lot of... I respect Marvel for this because it's not fear-based decision-making. They don't do things because they're afraid of upsetting the fans. They do things to delight the fans. And I feel like that's just a really great way to operate. So, it's an interesting answer, but she basically says, no, that really wasn't a concern. I guess what she means to say is maybe they knew the stir it was going to cause, but they really didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing, though, is that they had an answer for this question, and it wasn't intentionally bad or anything. They weren't like, oh, let's fuck with the fans. Let's see what they do. Like, no, they were genuinely thinking, okay, if we add Evan Peters, what would it do to Wanda? That's the important thing, people, because it wasn't like, oh, let's add him and then the multiverse will open up. It's like, okay, what does that have to do with Wanda? And so I think that's part of the reason why they weren't concerned at all. It's because, hey, this is our answer. This is our reason. If you don't like it, that's your problem. And that's a great way, honestly, to like really work in this, in that part of the industry, basically, especially for a big fan base.
But I really hope that, because in some of the interviews, Jac Schaeffer has also revealed that, she was given some comics to read, but she really is she said in the interview that she really wasn't a fan of comic books. I don't care, really, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Look at WandaVision, look how great it turned out, and there's your answer for somebody who doesn't like comic books. Hey, the Russos were not a fan of the Captain America character. And then look what they did. So, but then again, there is this lingering idea out there that some of these fandoms perpetuate that if you're not someone who's a fan, you have no business writing or directing or being part of something like this. And I think that's really toxic and that's really unfortunate. But I really hope that this doesn't, I mean, so far it hasn't gotten vicious from what I've seen, but I just hope this doesn't perpetuate this whole like MCU bullshit you talked about where it's like, you see, Jac Schaeffer didn't know her stuff. Why did you hire her? I'm sure someone out there will say something about it.
Yeah, probably. But no, I don't know. I mean, for that case of like, you know, being fans of the source material, you don't have to be a fan of the source material. I think, and Wanda is a different thing, but like I think if you're gonna start making a comic book movie, do some research about the character, obviously. You know,
they did.
Yeah,
they did.
Well, I mean, I'm saying about like I'm talking specifically about like Captain America, like when the first ones came out. You know, definitely do some research, and I'm sure they did, and it worked out great. They're great storytellers, and that's all you need. With Wanda, though, it's a different thing because you don't need the comics in this situation. Maybe for like the extent of her powers, obviously, or like how the magic works. No, actually, no, not even. Like they already have their own universe. The MCU's like they already made their own universe. They already have the Wanda character set. Someone just needed to come in and work some things around to like make her a full-fledged character. And so you don't really need the source material for that.
I have another quote here. This time with Matt Shackman. Still with Screen Rant and separate interview here. And this is regarding Monica's powers. And this answer is interesting. We had all mentioned, I think last week, that the sequence with Monica getting her powers wasn't the best. Matt Shackman provides here some context for how he envisioned it. I kind of wish it would have been as good as, or as clear as what he's saying here. I mean, I guess it was, but it wasn't, I guess, all that exciting. Let me just read to you what this says and I want to get your response. This is what he says here. The trip through the hex boundary literally breaks her apart, which is very similar to what happens to Wanda too. There's a kind of death that happens to Wanda before she can be reborn as the Scarlet Witch. And it's the same thing for Monica. The radiation pulls her apart into a whole spectrum of different Monicas. And she's also being confronted with her life flashing before her. We hear audio clips. She's confronting her grief in the same way Wanda does, confronting her grief and her loss. And it's through that sheer force of will that she creates herself anew, that she pulls all those things in. What she's doing is controlling the wavelength of energy. She's controlling the spectrums of energy, which is what she does. She aligns herself with that hex instead of being defeated by it. She controls it, she creates a path through, and she's then able to see the world anew.
Okay. I mean, I understood the part of her. You know, it's almost like the grief is hitting her even harder now because she's walking through the hex and she is pulling through, trying to keep herself together, and she makes it all the way out. That part I got. Everything else, I was just like, what the fuck? I mean, I actually like the idea that like her powers brings her, gives her a new perspective, a new sight almost, and that's actually pretty cool. Wow. But yeah, this should have been, I don't know. I don't think it should have been so metaphorical. I think with powers, you shouldn't be so metaphorical with them. I think just try to be as literal as possible.
My issue with this statement is that if that was the intent, I didn't get that from that scene all the way. Like, the part of her, like, being torn apart, sure, but, like, the whole grief thing, yeah, I think there was a better way of, like, because that whole thing, Matt Shackman is making out to seem like that was Monica basically reaching her arc. And this is the moment where she confronts and overcomes her grief. And, well, if that's the case, well, how it was directed, and I'm sorry, but he's the one that directed this, it did come off very anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And that really wasn't, and like the whole time I was watching that, I wasn't empowered.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking anything about Monica confronting her grief. I was just thinking, oh, Monica's getting her powers now.
Yeah. It was like that. It was just, here's the setup. Like, that's all I thought, really. And this is the part where we do think the show kind of did mess up on, is that they should have put her more into the show.
Yeah.
All three of us, when we did the podcast, we really thought Monica was going to play a bigger role in the show than what she had.
And after that scene where she gets her power, she basically just falls off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That was the peak of her character. That they did nothing with her afterward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is unfortunate overall with Monica Rambeu. Then comes the matter of the Darkhold, David. The Book of the Damned, as they call it. I have a feeling this is going to be probably the most, of all the questions lingering from WandaVision, this is the one I have a feeling is going to be left lingering for quite a while, isn't it?
For sure.
Because I don't know if it's just a question no one seems to want to answer, but yeah, this is weird. So Matt Shackman was asked about what Wanda was doing with the Darkhold at the end of the show, and he says, I wouldn't want to say too much. I can't say too much, except that obviously she's studying up and learning a lot from the Darkhold, and we'll see where that goes. But that's not what I think is a lingering question. I think it's pretty obvious what the hell she's doing with it and what's going to become of it. In some way, her reading that book, she's going to open the multiverse, yada, yada, yada. We know where that's going to go. The question that is confounding is, what does that mean for the other Marvel shows that we've been talking about, right? Because it was a different design and it was a similar book, and we talked about this last week. And then this is what the Direct says, the website, the Direct, that was basically, they did a good job fleshing out the story. Then the topic of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came around as the Darkhold showed its pages over on the popular ABC show, supposedly set within the same timeline as the rest of the MCU. First of all, props to the Direct for actually referring to the show as popular. That's a first. So there's that. When asked if it was the same exact book or an entirely different one, Shackman said he would imagine it's the same book. Yes, we designed it anew. We didn't look at the other Darkholds that had been designed. It is part of the Marvel Universe, though, so I would imagine it's the same book. I don't know exactly how it was used in those shows, in those other shows, because I wasn't a regular viewer. But the Darkhold has a comic's origin. Its mythology will continue to be developed. How does that answer sit with you?
They have no idea about the Darkhold. Origins of S.H.I.E.L.D., really. I don't know. I mean, again, it's this Kevin Feige. Like, it was up to him. If he wants to make the shows canon, could have easily told them, hey, this is how it originally looked. You can change it up a bit if you like, whatever. Because of, I think it would have been fine to change it up a bit for it to be in the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, he should have kept an eye on it, so that fans wouldn't be confused. But
it's an interesting answer because like we have to dissect this because first he says he imagines it's the same book. That's him saying maybe, but he's not really sure because then you read the answer and it's like he doesn't really know what the original book looks like.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about in vague terms like the Marvel Comics. He's basically saying that the Darkhold is a Marvel Comics property. Yeah, we know that. But he's also saying that he doesn't know what the other designs were. They didn't look at what it was, how it looked like in the other shows. They just came up with a new design. So yeah, it's a weird answer because at first it says like, oh, it's the same book. But then when you read into it, it's like, well, doesn't really know because there really wasn't a discussion about it.
This also adds on to what we've been saying. It's like Kevin Feige doesn't like plan out every meticulous thing in this universe, you know? I'm sure I am willing to bet in another movie when they bring it up, they're going to say that it changes its shape or they're going to say something that won't erase Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's it.
In a separate interview by Screen Rant, this time with the showrunner Jac Schaeffer, the same topic of the Darkhold also came up, as did the question of its connection to that of the one in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Schaeffer offered a conflicting answer to Shackman's response about the book. She says, I've been getting the question, and I don't have a hard and fast answer. We were not looking at that book. This was the Darkhold for this story. This is her saying, I don't know. I don't know what the hell. I don't know. I mean, we designed a book. It's called The Darkhold. This is the book we use for this story. But to the question about what does that mean for the other shows, she says, I don't have an answer for that. They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this doesn't surprise me, I guess, but it's like, are we ever going to get an answer to that? I mean, I don't know. It's like,
we can't, like, for sure, we're not going to get an answer from them anymore. Like, it's really up to some other writer now to decide what they're going to do with this connection, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I guess one could say that, look, if they didn't look at how it was previously designed, then should that not call into question whether or not the people at Marvel Studios consider that to have happened in their canon? First of all, this whole conversation of canon is very annoying to me because there's this implication that something has value if it's canon or not. And there is this whole group of people who are literally just trying to invalidate the entire existence of that show. Oh, because it's not canon, it's not worth my time, I'm not watching it, it doesn't exist, bye-bye. And that is another example to me of how this kind of interconnectedness has kind of ruined storytelling because evidently nothing matters until it has a connection to something. Then all of a sudden, I guess it matters. So yay. It's hard to tell really what these answers mean in regards to the other Marvel television shows, just based on what we're hearing from Jac Schaeffer and Max Shackman, because they're just the people working on this show, and all they were concerned about was what they were doing for this show. And yet they're being asked a lot of questions, as we just went over this past hour, of things they quite frankly know nothing about.
And honestly, with the Evan Peters thing, I did try to come up with my own answer as to why they picked him to play it. That didn't have to do with the multiverse. And my thought was just kind of like, it was to divert from people to think that this was Agatha's doing. You know, because like if you're going
more misdirection,
yes, because like if you want people to be convinced that this was Pietro, who do you get? Obviously, the first choice is Aaron Taylor Johnson, but if you can't get him, Evan Peters is the best second choice because he's already played that character. People know him. If people have no idea who that is, they can look online real quick and go, oh, okay, he played this guy. Oh, wow, these people are kind of excited about it. That's cool. And so And yeah, like you just said, it was supposed to be a misdirection. We're supposed to be convinced that this is Pietro in some way. And I think, I think it was the director of the show that said, again, it's for us to be convinced that's Pietro. You also need Wanda to be convinced. And his reason as to why bringing back Pietro, but also kind of putting a different face on it, is because this is what grief does to you. You're willing to believe anything, especially for Wanda. She's willing to believe anything at that point that is her brother. And so, again, people, you played yourselves. If you just thought about it a bit more in a character level and an emotional level, not in a what makes you the happiest, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like we're gonna have to find out. I guess I don't know if they'll ever just come out and say it, but I feel like in the next year or so we're gonna find out a lot about, in regards to people who keep wondering about what this means for the wherever the universe of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is set in, because they're doing a Miss Marvel show. Kamala Khan is supposed to be an Inhuman. I imagine they're not going to do that with the TV show because of the damage done to that property because of that failed Inhumans television show. And also because they've kind of been used in S.H.I.E.L.D., so they may just dodge that altogether. It was hilarious. I don't know if you saw this, but like there were some rumors about a month ago because of a month ago there was a new trailer for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and there was a bunch of stories, a lot of clickbait articles that popped up saying that Falcon and the Winter Soldier may reintroduce the Inhumans in the MCU, all because the Inhumans TV show Twitter account shared or retweeted the trailer for Falcon and Winter Soldier. The reason was that the account was dormant. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't have regular posts. That's pretty thin. Because I mean there were other accounts like Cloak and Dagger retweeted it, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. retweeted it, the official Twitter handles for those. So I mean,
okay.
Yeah,
I was about to say like, okay, I can understand why people would be theorize that, but once you mentioned that the other shows did it too, then I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah, people are going crazy.
Yeah, they are, but they were like going through all these theories that like the Inhumans are going to be reintroduced, and watch, that's what happens. That would be so. If that happens, I mean, then you have your answer. That's what happens. But we'll see. But you know what? I have to think that on some level, I think both can be true at the same time, and that there are going to be aspects of the S.H.I.E.L.D. show, storylines or facts about their universe that may end up being retconned here, and that they still come back because they can do that, basically. I guess they always have the out of saying, if for example, those rumors are true, that Clark Gregg and Chloe Ben are going to appear in Secret Invasion, and the Darkhold is not the Darkhold that they used. Without, at that point, I mean, I guess they could point to multiverse, which at that point would have already played out with Doctor Strange 2. But we also have to remember, and I've kept saying this, like, didn't S.H.I.E.L.D., like, they broke a time loop, and then they also time traveled to a different multiverse themselves?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they always have, like what Peter said last week, it doesn't take really a lot to really explain why they're here now. They have many different options. And they could say that, well, it's a different Darkhold because it changes shape, or because they were in a different multiverse when that storyline occurred, now they're back here. Who the fuck knows, really, ultimately. Mm-hmm. And also, we don't really know ourselves how much recognition, Shield as a show was going to receive by these new Disney Plus series. One would hope something. I know that there was a Shield producer that on Twitter recently said that in one of the Falcon and Winter Soldier trailers, there were some masks that were similar to the ones that were designed for the Watchdogs, I think in season 3 or season 4. But as far as I mean, when Secret Invasion, they're casting right now. They're not filming, they're casting. So I know Chloe Bennett was recently cast in that Powerpuff Girls show that for the CW. But David says he seems to believe that there shouldn't be too much of an issue, considering that Secret Invasion is going to, I think, filming later. I think I want to say in the summer, I think it's going to start filming. It's a 6-episode series. I don't think there'd be too much of a conflict there. Yeah. Again, if, and this is a big if those reports and rumors happen to be accurate in regards to Clark Gregg, because I mean, just to be clear, the ones I've read from Fandom Wire and other places have said that Clark Gregg, Chloe Bennett, and Charlie Cox are supposed to make appearances on Secret Invasion.
I mean, and we also don't know the extent of their roles. So, again, with Chloe Bennett, it just could be a quick flight in and out.
Yeah, but well, what would that mean, David? What do you think? Let's say that happens. Let's say Chloe Bennett and Clark Gregg do make an appearance on Secret Invasion. What do you think the implications mean then, as far as all of these questions of canon or not, and how do you think people are going to react to see those characters appear on Secret Invasion? I mean, I think you and I would personally love that, but how do you think that would be received by these people who seemingly would rather pretend that show didn't exist?
I mean, I would hope. My thing, though, is that if they do put him in, what are the chances that they are going to be the same characters as in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because they could easily just go, oh yeah, I was brought back to life, I'm okay now. Like, they could just not add the fact that he's an android or whatever. And then with Chloe Bennett, they could just introduce her as a new character. Like, I mean, completely new. Not the same one as in the show. Like, that's an easy thing to do, really. But I would hope.
What about Charlie Cox, though?
I think because it was praised more than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And because there's no connection at all between that show and between Daredevil and S.H.I.E.L.D., they could just make him the same character. But yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of things they can do. For me, I would hope that Chloe Bennett is the same character as in the show, because I love the show. And for the people's reactions to it, I mean, I don't give a shit, really. It's like, you didn't like the show, that's on you.
Yeah, I suppose it's a possibility they could be playing different versions of their characters, but I can't imagine that's gonna go over well with people.
Probably not, but I mean, I don't know. It's just, you never really know with the Marvel fans, really. Like, they could just be like, oh, but it's still Chloe Bennett. I mean, it's still Quake. Like, that's so cool. We're gonna get, maybe a more comics accurate version of her, and so like that could probably happen. With Coulson, the Coulson thing might be something different, because I mean, people wanted him back right from the beginning, and we got that in the show. So to just kind of like throw away his arc throughout the series and just make him anew, that might not go over well.
Yeah, they could just be Skrulls, but I mean, even if they are Skrulls, that would mean that they exist in the universe then. So that's why it's interesting. It's interesting. Again, we're gonna have to wait a couple of months to see if that does end up panning out, but there were several outlets out there that were saying that they were going to be in it. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what that means. But I think what is very possible is they are in the show. They're playing their version of the characters, and you probably are going to see at some point in these Marvel Disney Plus shows contradictions to what happens on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happen. I think that's just natural. Yeah. But I guess to me, I don't care really, but what makes me upset is that people are going out of their way to look for reasons to further devalue the show. Mm-hmm. Like, did you see, David, like all the shit that was literally, did you see the number of articles that were made since the WandaVision finale regarding the Darkhold and what it means for the S.H.I.E.L.D. people?
No.
You didn't see that? No, well, let me share some with you right here. Like, Screen Rant. WandaVision just made every Marvel TV show redundant and instantly dismissed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as irrelevant. That was Screen Rant. Tom's Guide. WandaVision just Thanos snapped these old Marvel TV shows out of existence. Comicbook.com. WandaVision's Darkhold raises Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. continuity questions. CriticalHit.net. WandaVision confirms Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Runaways, and Cloak and Dagger are not Marvel. Comic book resources. WandaVision's new Darkhold suggests Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways aren't canon. GamesRadar.com. WandaVision Episode 9 has everyone questioning whether Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still canon. I have more. Decider.com. Did WandaVision's Darkhold reveal just piss on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s grave? I need you to tell me, David, I'm not the crazy person here. Because doesn't it feel like some of these people have it out for this show that is no longer on the air?
I think they've always had it out from the beginning. Or not from the beginning, but like after a while. Because I do think that the first season people were kind of praising it, like, oh, cool. But yeah.
Remember when it was on the air? I think it started around season 4, all the way through the end of the show. So before, you had endless articles of questioning whether or not the show was relevant or canon. While it was on the air, do you know what the majority of the articles written about the show was?
What?
Remember the headline, the common one? Is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ending? If you literally Google Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ending or like about to get canceled, there are a lot of articles up on there. So like, I don't know. It's just, it's a weird thing that constantly happens. Yeah, it was weird overall, but I don't know. By the way, if anyone's curious out there about what this show is all, why there's so much commotion of it, by the way, like, we're not the ones that are driving all this traffic. We've been talking about it because we love the show, and like when there are connections or when there are references or we want to compare it to something else, we have this show in mind. But here's an example, as I just mentioned, that it's been discussed all throughout. David, where, like, you and I look at all the Marvel shows, where does WandaVision fit with you as far as like your ranking of Marvel TV shows? Because I think you're the only one that saw all of them, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So you watched also all of the Runaways and Cloak and Dagger. Yeah. Iron Fist, both seasons. Yep. Luke Cage, both seasons. Jessica Jones, 3 seasons. Daredevil, 4 seasons. The Punisher, 2 seasons. Agent Carter, 2 seasons. Inhumans, 1 season. and Shield 7 seasons.
I don't think I finished Punisher season 2, but I know what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think for the most part, you enjoyed most of those.
Yeah.
Or if not all of them. So, like, what would your top 3 be? Now with WandaVision included.
I think Daredevil has to be number 1. I guess Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could be 2. And then WandaVision. Yeah. Because, I mean, I love Jessica Jones the first season, but, like, as a whole, though, season 2 and 3 did not hold up so well.
Really?
Yeah.
I never saw them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't find them bad. It's just, I mean, that first season was so good. It couldn't hold up, really. Punisher was fine. Luke Cage, it's fine. I think that's like my second least favorite of the Netflix shows. I mean, Runaways and Cloak and Dagger honestly are like my least favorite in the shows. Inhumans.
Oh, really?
Well,
okay.
Inhumans is.
Inhumans, yeah.
I mean, I almost forgot about it. But yeah, I think those 3 for sure. I've been wanting to rewatch Daredevil. That's why I put it like as number 1. Cause like,
yeah, me too. I think, look, you and I have the exact same top 3. I think the difference is the order, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I mean, I think every jaw in the world would drop if I didn't say S.H.I.E.L.D. was my number 1. I mean, clearly it is. But my number 2, maybe, I think WandaVision's number 2 for me. And then Daredevil number 3. The reason why is, by the way, I love all those shows, to be clear with you. I think what did it with me with WandaVision is the sitcom. You know, it revived the piece of me that I thought was long dead. The romance and then the emotion between those 2 characters, I think really, really sold it for me. But then close behind it is Daredevil. And I still haven't seen season 3. But I have to say, like, what really kind... Oh, we forgot. I guess one show, The Defenders. Remember that? I mean, it almost felt like a season 3 of Daredevil.
It almost did.
I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It almost did, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, oh, man. Honestly...
Can you believe there was a show called The Defenders and we just forgot about that?
I know. Oh, my gosh. They need to put at least that one on Disney Plus or something to revive it. Oh, God. Damn, Defenders. Honestly, I really liked that first season. It was pretty cool. I don't think I would put it in my top 3. Maybe top 5.
I liked how it started out. It was really strong, and then by the end, it was okay.
Yeah, it dragged on
for
just a tiny bit, but I mean, I think overall, I got what I wanted from it. There was just the interactions with these 4 characters and what they brought into it. So,
yeah. I mean, I almost forgot it existed too. The Defenders. I guess like the ones that are the bottom for me, Inhumans, Iron Fist. I only saw season 1. And that's a hard one. Cause like I haven't seen a lot of seasons like Punisher. Well, I guess Punisher season 1. I thought it was okay. A lot of people really liked Punisher season 1, but I was like,
it was fine.
It was fine. Runaways was fine. I never saw Cloak and Dagger. However, if I'm looking back, I guess to round up the top 3, so I had S.H.I.E.L.D., WandaVision, and Daredevil. Right behind it, I would put Agent Carter and Jessica Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Because I really liked both seasons of Agent Carter, and season 1 of Jessica Jones is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I really gotta think about it, honestly.
Interesting. Well, maybe we should have a show of it sometime.
Yeah.
And like these are only like the shows, because there are other shows that were produced by Marvel Entertainment, like Legion and The Gifted. I guess those could count. I don't know. I'm not sure. I never saw those two.
I saw the first season of Legion, and I really liked it. I still need to watch the other ones. But honestly, if I could put Legion, who knows? That might overrun it. I need to watch the other seasons, but we'll see.
Okay. So where are we right now with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? I have to say, I kind of stayed away from all the marketing. I haven't really looked at any of the trailers. I just want to see it for myself when it drops this week. What are your expectations for what this is going to be?
I mean, the same thing with WandaVision. Like, I really want Sam to be a really good, fleshed out character, and
Bucky.
Yeah, for sure, Bucky. I feel like Bucky's like an easy thing to do with him because there's a lot of baggage with him. I feel like the most difficult one is going to be Sam because he's already like a very likable character. And so how are you going to like make me care about him even more, or like make him like me, or make me like him even more? But yeah, I feel like honestly, if I did have to compare, I feel like Bucky is gonna be like Wanda, and that we're really gonna get him to sort of like be free of his past. And Sam is gonna be like Vision, I guess. Where I mean, they really are kind of the same because like Vision has no idea who he is. Sam has to figure out what kind of like hero he wants to be. Almost like they're almost the same character. So I'm very curious how they're gonna end up in the end. And I mean, who knows?
Yeah, they're really going to prioritize a lot of action. So I would hope that the set pieces are good. I know I saw an interview real quick with one of the producers was saying that they did a lot of practical action effects, so there's that. Again, what I'm most concerned about is getting to see Sam and Bucky as actual characters and them inhabiting a space and a story of their own. That's what I'm most concerned about. What I don't want to see, though, is... and I can't help but feel like maybe these first 2 weeks you're going to see it. I don't want to see this tweet or this narrative come up like from some people like, you see WandaVision? That's how you get us hooked. That's how you do your first 2 episodes. That I don't have any patience for, and if I see it, I'm going to go ballistic.
I think you're gonna see it, especially with like the action.
I know, yeah, the action is going to like a lot of people evidently only care about that, and that's going to be like, you see, fucking. My main concern, and again, it always has to be an area of frustration for me. But what I am most concerned about is this narrative popping up that automatically says, well, you see, Falcon and Winter Soldier is already miles above WandaVision as far as quality is concerned because it had action. I'm going to see an MI.
No, yeah, and especially because Sam is like directly tied with the Avengers basically now, especially because he's like new Captain America. We're going to get a lot more references to the movies. There's already one in like a promo that they sent out. I mean, again, it was just they just mentioned Doctor Strange. It was just a little joke. That's all it is. But like, I feel like to keep that up throughout the show, it's gonna be enough for a lot of people.
That's interesting because I remember back in 2013 when a new show was interconnected to the MCU and they kept referencing, the Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man. And I remember at the time, people were attacking the show because of how often it would name drop characters. I love how that's come back around, and apparently it's a good thing now. So yeah.
We're going to see articles like that, aren't we?
Yes.
Oh, God, I hate it. I hate it so much.
We're gonna see articles like that prop up. Like we saw with WandaVision. We loved it, but we also were a little bit turned off when we see articles like WandaVision has revolutionized the television industry. And we're like, what the fuck are you smoking? So I think we're probably gonna see one that says Falcon Winter Soldier has changed the way we watch TV. And we're probably gonna see, I bet you at one point we'll see the Falcon and Winter Soldier is everything Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. never was. I'll bet you everything I have, which isn't much, but I bet you everything I have we're going to see something like that. But if there is, come back to Red Spotlight and you'll see it here. Anyway, that's our show today, guys. David, do you have anything else to say?
Nah.
Good, because I'm done. Thank you all for listening. As a reminder, you can listen to our podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts on iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, CastBox, and YouTube. Every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays. We're going to have weekly recaps coming up with Falcon and Winter Soldier, as we've just mentioned. Next week, we have a review of the Snyder Cut, Raya and the Last Dragon, and of course, our thoughts on the Oscar nominations. Fantasy Fair is going to have their own review on WandaVision, like we just had ours. Fantasy Fair will have their own review on Raya and the Last Dragon, as well as diving deeper into some Disney legends from Disney Parks' perspective. They just announced Disneyland is opening up again, so keep an eye out for the Fantasy Fair with that. Until next time, thank you all for listening. Stay under the spotlight, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.